Welcome everyone to this episode of TNG with the legendary David Beaudry. For anyone who doesn't know you already, just go ahead and give us a little bit of introduction about who you are at a soul level and what's your purpose here on beautiful Mama Earth.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. My purpose is to awaken souls and give them the inner technologies to ground their soul through their body, to ground their heart and, the light in the shadow, because, we are here at this very transformational time, and many prophecies have spoken about this time, the great purification, the great transformation, from the Hopis, the Mayans, the Buddhists. I mean, every tradition talks about these specific times. And, so to give you a little bit more background just about who I am and kind of where I come from, being very young and sensitive and empathic, right? So if y'all watching this and y'all are sensitive or empathic, know that Qigong will help you harness the skills so you're not overwhelmed by all the fucked up shit that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we're not overwhelmed by everything, with the media and our families. And I remember when I was like 20 years old and I was reading this book called Ancient Future. Or actually, I was probably more like 18. I was reading this book called Ancient Future. And it was one of the first books that just cracked me open, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm here to become awake. I'm here to become enlightened. Holy shit. I was just, it was my first year of college. I was playing football, man. And I was like, like busting heads, man. I was a really good football player, played for 10 years. But then I had this massive spiritual awakening my freshman year of college. And I was studying astrology, reading, Buddhism and Taoism and, the Gnostics. And, I was reading about all the religions and psychology. I was just like, I'm a sponge. Oh my God, I'm enlightened. It was like, it was epic, right? And then inevitably, after that first big awakening, there's, the descent down into all the shadow material, that is just part of the hero's journey. So, I battled with suicidal depression when I was very young, about 7 years old. I remember being, depressed and suicidal for a number of reasons. But my dad struggled with depression for much of his life. So as a young child, I was feeling his depression and suicidal thoughts and, sorrow. I was just like, wow. And I would cry a lot. I would be angry about the state of the environment. And so I was, what healed me before I knew, breathwork and Qigong and movement, I would go in nature, and we moved. I remember as a kid, I was like wishing on this star. I was like, God, I don't want to move. Like, this is my home. And so we moved, and it was, that traumatic childhood thing, and so if you're watching this, if you have trauma, know that we've all had trauma, and it's not helpful to compare our traumas, right? We all have certain things. So on the, on the physical level, from the physical, I was like, oh, I've had a great life, no problem, right? But we all struggle in some way, right? Especially if your soul has a big mission, right? So if you're watching this, you're like, man, my soul has a big mission, know that you are giving so much more, right? You're giving so much more love, strength, courage, and tests than somebody who's, it's like we didn't choose the easy life, right? We chose the one we're going to lean into those shadows. All right. So thank you. So all you here, thank you for showing up and not giving up. Because there's many times I wanted to give up, man. I was, in tears, just being like, why the fuck am I here on this planet, God? Show me, or else take me out. I was like, that's what I show me, God. What am I here to do? And I started to do that at a young age, at a very young age. Give me one more moment. So at that young age, I was like, why am I here? And I was just in my awareness. And then I would run in the forest, right? I lived in Oregon. And I would run through I lived in an apartment building, and I would run through the forest, man, climb the trees, man. I would poop off the top of trees, man. I would write poetry. This would be a different tree. And another tree, I would write poetry and bring my water bottle.
Tree and the poetry tree. Don't mix them together.
Different trees. You know, don't poop when you write poetry, okay? So, you know, I remember feeling joy again being in those woods. You know, I felt all alone. All my friends were in California. I was 7 years old, new friends. It's gloomy. Out it's Oregon. It's cold. I'm like, what the fuck, man? I was in the sun. Now it's cold out. And, you know, I would just go in the trees, man, you know, and get lost in nature. And something about those fresh waters, you know, the creeks and the sun and it's moving. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm connected to all of life. My spirit is strong, you know, and there was some awakening happening at that, you know, being a 7-year-old, being like, wow, I'm here for something bigger. I don't know what that is, you know? So, so that's kind of that my process of awakening, you know, has been, you know, healing through movement, you know, really healing through movement. So that's now my company or my school is called Noble Movement Academy. And it's that remembrance of our divine nature, right? We are all noble by nature, and we are also animals, right? And if we forget that we have an animal body, we get lost in our head, and that's how you can get confused inside the matrix, right? Because our body is not our own anymore. Neither is our mind. So the first thing we got to do to really stay awake, right, is to have a regular movement and exercise practice, a regular breathwork practice. This is your energetic hygiene, right? And just like physical exercise, you know, cleanses and purifies, right? We can do them at the same time, right? We can sweat, we can clear our mind and our emotions, and we can remember our soul and not get caught up in, you know, all of the distractions of the, you know, the interwebs and the family dynamics and the COVID and there's just, you know, there's so much that we can get overwhelmed by. You know, we take that moment, even take it right now with me. Sit up tall and take a deep breath in. Exhale, relax shoulders. So yeah, 3 more times. Deep breath in, tall spine. Exhale, let it go. Visualize yourself like a pillar of light. Inhaling and exhaling down through your feet. Just do one more big inhale. Exhale, tall, just grounding, letting go of anything in the way of your heart. And take 3 breaths now into your abdomen, smiling to your abdomen. Feeling this presence, feeling your presence, your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, and your spirit body. And so I teach these simple things that are ancient and powerful, and it's real magic. We just need to do it. That's it. You know, at the end of the day, because I still have stress, I still have fear. It just comes less. Usually, you know, most of the time just kicking its ass because I'm training my Qigong and my breath work and my tactical fitness. And I'm like, you know, I'm too busy to get, you know, in a good way. I'm like, I'm inspired by life. You know, I'm inspired by life. So, you know, when we have a strong purpose and we're inspired, we're motivated, all those little things just start to clear out, you know? And we're in a great limbo time, right? We're like the butterfly, you know, the caterpillar is walking on earth. It's like, man, I'm cool, man. We good. I'm good. And then all of a sudden it goes into the cocoon and it's like, what the fuck? I'm all melty and gooey. What the hell it's dark and scary in here. What the fuck is happening? I'm on my old world. I used to be able to walk around. At least now I'm in this fucking larva. What the fuck? Right. And then, you know, but you can't force the healing. You can't force it. It got to go through its process. All of a sudden, it sprouts wings. And it's like, whoa. And then we fly, right? So being in that deconstruction phase can be real scary, right? And that's that shadow that we talked about, you know, that hero's journey that we all have to face our shit, our shadows, you know. And I remember one of my favorite quotes: "From the manure comes magic. From the manure comes magic." And so we learn how to train Qigong. We learn how to compost. We know how to cleanse. We know how to rebuild the garden inside of our heart, you know, with Qigong, which is energy skill, you know, and it's the breath, and it's the body, it's the emotions, and it's the spirit. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you said about part of who you are and part of your journey is not comparing trauma. That's honestly one of the most traumatic things that we see people do in the world is they take their trauma and they'll either say, oh, this person is doesn't know how bad my trauma is, which is really insensitive to that person's trauma. Or they compare it and say, oh, that person never had to go through the trauma I did. But it's all bullshit. We're all traumatized, hardcore. We're all really traumatized as a result of a myriad of things that are being forced upon humanity. But what I also heard is that you're a being of nature. And that is such an integral part of Qigong, is to be able to utilize that healing force that fluctuates, not always happy, not always sad, but fluctuates throughout nature and helps us to find harmony with the all. And there were so many things. I don't want to compare my trauma to yours, but a lot of it was similar. But what I will compare is the journey, and having gone through a lot of similar things and being also not fully healed. I don't think anyone on the planet is fully healed, but profoundly healed from practices such as meditation and Qigong and Reiki. And the thing about Qigong that is different than other meditative practices is it's primarily focused upon energy, first of all, and brings conscious awareness to the truth that everything is energy. But it's also active, as you said. It's an active movement. You're not just meditating and trying to find stillness. You're meditating through movement, and this will be the stepping stone for Qigong becoming more and more like yoga, more and more universally practiced art. Reiki's getting there. Is the awareness that if you move your body with energy, you're getting a different cleansing force than if you're sitting solidly in a spiritual practice, praying, meditating, what smoking hash or whatever you do to chill out is different than Qigong. So my next question is, for all of those people out there who have felt energy, who have felt magic, but haven't stepped into actively utilizing Qi, activating practice through Qigong, what would you say is kind of the first step and then the path that you go through as you start to not only practice Qigong, energy mastery, energy art, but actually also stripping away the nonsense and the BS that people have told you scientifically, religiously, that has dampened that Qi? Because a lot of people are operating at like 2% of their full power.
Yes. It's a great question, you know, and there's a number of ways we can discuss it. But, you know, what I'll say is this: to start using magic, right? Magic in the truest essence, right, is understanding that we are an embodied soul, and we have this soul energy that if we don't express this soul energy, right, you just said the word dampened, right? So what we're up against is a society that dampens our spirit, that doesn't teach us who we are, and actively tries to hide it from us. And right, so there's this in medical Qigong, we call it the acquired nature and the original nature. Right, so there's an original nature of every organ, of every cell. Right, in Chinese medicine, as an example, we know the lungs. The original nature of our lungs is courage and honor and inspiration, right, and valor. And what's the acquired nature, meaning it's acquired from this world? Sadness, guilt, sorrow, grief, right? People die, things suck. You will cry. If you try to repress your tears, it becomes petrified sorrow and turns into cancer, right? So that's why we have a prevalence of cancer in our culture, because one, our food obviously is, full of toxins. So is the air, right? So we're up against a very heavy toxic load that we didn't have 50 years ago, right? So that's the first, we call it Jing level, the essence level, right? So on that essence level, to maintain and start working with magic, work with your food and your breath every day. Make sure you're getting the highest quality food that you can. Spend that extra $1 or $2 for some organic, right? Make sure your water is clean, The Brita doesn't get out the fluoride, right? The Brita filters, right? So we could go real deep down that rabbit hole. But what I want you to take away from this call is the most important thing you have mastery over is your breath, right? So anytime we notice we are feeling some kind of stress or overwhelm, and so when I notice it, my mind starts to get negative, right? I start to get stressed out. Oh, I got this to do. I got that thing. And then I go kind of my breath, like, wow, I'm not really breathing, or I'm just aware that all these negative thoughts, or not even thoughts, they're just, I'm busy in my day, right? So, So to slow your mind, you have to slow your heart rate. Okay. So remember this, your breath rate controls your heart rate. Your heart rate controls your brain state. Right? So master the breath. You want to work with magic, master your breath through your body. Right? And now that we start to use our breath in our movement, so say the next time you're at your gym, inhale, and then exhale, so that you're breathing in tune with your movement. So when you're doing dishes, I'm breathing into my belly. 1, 2, 3, exhale, sending the good chi into the plate. So I start to be artful in my day-to-day. By staying connected to my breath, I stay connected to where my heart is, right? So I'm always in this awareness, right? And some days are better than other days, right? And some days I'm sad, some days I'm angry. I'm a human. But most days I'm feeling pretty awesome because I'm doing these practices, right? So there's the emotional debris that we begin to shuck off once we start doing these practices. So a sign that you have a good Qigong practice or breathwork practice or meditation practice, shit starts to go a little awry, okay? Because all the shadows begin to lift. So you use that first month or two of Qigong practice, you're like, why is everything breaking down, David? I thought you said my life is going to get better. Right? It's like, because you're at a higher frequency of energy, and all the things that aren't in alignment come into the surface. It's like, oh, I got to look at that. Okay. And then there's a process of weeding out, right? Weeding the garden. Before we can grow flowers, we got to weed. We got to pull out the old roots. So Qigong is one of the best skills, from a medical Qigong perspective. I got my master's in medical Qigong. The root of dis-ease is emotional stagnation. The root of imbalance is emotional stagnation, right? We haven't fully expressed our anger, our sorrow, or whatever, or our joy, right? We haven't been given the permission. You can feel so much joy and bliss, right? And so the degree that you are hiding from your fear, right? You're keeping a cap on all your anger and your fear, is the degree that you're keeping a cap on all that joy and bliss that also wants to come in, right? And, we won't even get into the conversation about, modern medicine and how that's preventing us in some ways, right? But you have your breath work practice, man, Your movement practice every day is like brushing your teeth, taking a shower every day, you know, energetic muscles. You squat every day, your legs will get stronger. You run every day, you're going to get a little faster, right? With Qigong, you practice every day, you will change, guaranteed.
That's the main thing I take away from what you just said is that our true nature, our primal nature, our soul nature is already good. And that's the exact opposite of what Western religion, predominantly talking about Catholicism and Islam, tells you you're already messed up. You're already wrong. You're already broken. You're already messed up. Anything you do from here on out is going to be terrible because you're already messed up. You should just ask for forgiveness. But the truth of the matter is we all come from stars and supernovas bigger than we could possibly imagine. That's like, we think we get excited about fireworks. We're from exploding stars. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of people kind of think about it a little bit, but like literally our consciousness, our body, our chi, our energy is, and everything around us is from some sort of mysterious interstellar explosion of fireworks, of like this great, ultimately blissful experience. That's where we're from. That's what the creator is. That's what source is. So remembering that Buddha nature, or that Tao nature, that original nature, connects us also back to our original inner child and helps us to heal our inner child. I know we both, as kids, had this great connection to being a Jedi, and that's the truth. It's a story, right? It's a movie. It's books that talk about this. But when George Lucas was creating Star Wars, he pulled from the samurai, he pulled from Zen Buddhism, he pulled from Native American shamanism. And his direct statement was he wanted the Jedi religion to be a synthesis, a futuristic synthesis of all the world's religions, all the world's spiritualities, all the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't work is condensed into one practice. And I remember being 7 years old, around the same time you were talking about, and I was doing Qigong, and there was no Qigong teachers in my neighborhood, in the surrounding neighborhoods. There wasn't even yoga at that time in my neighborhood. And I started doing Qigong, and I'm like, I feel this energy, I feel this movement, and I'm like feeling in tune and inspired by the ability to heal and to move energy through this mysterious force that we can all tap into and connect to. And then you get the, oh, that's not real. Oh, what are you doing? That's weird. Oh, you got a big imagination. All of these things. And that's like, that's the veil over our joy. And it's also covering up the light, which is the truth. If we're wearing a veil, we're wearing masks, we're dimming the truth, the light that's automatically coming. Everybody is exposed to the truth. It's just a matter of what you choose. If you're choosing truth, you're choosing education, or you're choosing ignorance. So those first steps, a lot of what you're saying was also everyday Qigong and everyday elements.
Yes.
Connecting with the water, connecting with the breath, and practicing through every movement, not just you go to class, you do Qigong, and that's it for the rest of the day. No more Qigong. Everything is that energy flowing forward and through and around. So if you could master feeling good about doing the dishes, then you're giving yourself an emotional advantage to somebody who is
Yeah.
like kind of immature, and every time they're doing chores, they're acting like a kid and like, oh, blah blah blah. There's still people that
It's
I
real.
know
Yeah. They're
people that are our
frustrated.
age, I know people that are our age and older that don't cook. They can't cook. They get
Yeah.
takeout and fast food all the time. And
Yeah.
not only is that expensive, but it's definitely not good for you. And it's
Yeah.
like we need to learn to care for ourselves. And Qigong has been a huge proponent of my life as well as yours, to care for oneself, to
Mhm.
truly like not just be victim to the society or the family or the relationship, but to really like, okay, I'm gonna honor and take care of myself because I'm the only person that I'm gonna be with 100% of the time. So that's
Yeah.
the learning space. That's the where the real magic.
Warriorship. Warriorship. You know, what we're discussing here is spiritual warriorship. You know, it's like an understanding that there's this one phrase, the amazing book. If y'all want to read an amazing book, um, it's called The Shambhala Warrior, right? And he talks about how we create an enlightened society, and it's beautiful. You know, and he speaks on meditation, and he speaks about some of these principles. And one of the principles is how to invoke nowness. He called, you know, how, and from the now is where magic comes from, right? We only have this present moment. But there's a phrase in Tibetan that really resonated with me. It's called drala, D-R-A-L-A, drala. And drala means beyond aggression or beyond resistance, right? So it's like the first way to invoke the now, the first way to invoke magic is to go beyond resistance. And so I started to notice these pockets of resistance in my family dynamics and my relations, feeling kind of whiny and frustrated about doing dishes, right? Or feeling whiny and frustrated about showing up for a job that I love, right? But I started noticing, oh, where are these resistances? Oh, how can I go beyond the enemy? And this is not my enemy anymore. There's no resistance. You know, so we can create an enemy out of anything, but that enemy is only really within, right? So think about if each person on our planet right now takes full responsibility for their heart, for their actions, for creating peace in their own life, man, the world will transform very quickly, right? Instead of pointing our fingers at the government or pointing our fingers at our partnerships or our mom or dad, right? All of those were factors in creating the perfect soup for our soul, right? So each one of you as a soul has chosen to be born in the exact body with the exact parents, with the exact circumstances that would show you your resistance and bring you to those shadow parts. Like, wow, okay, even this, I am unafraid. I can breathe into this and not be afraid of the paper tiger, you know, and face our own shadows, right? So Qigong to me is also fundamentally about this spiritual warriorship. Oh, yes, I'm unafraid to face myself and to face these areas where I have some resistance. And it's not even trying to change it. It's just like, oh, what are the areas of resistance that I can just breathe into and clear the story out of the way? I'm just going to breathe into this area, right? And so even in this moment, as you're listening or watching, right, just feel as you breathe, there's an expansiveness, right? You're meeting this resistance, whatever area of your life brings you that feeling of stress or frustration or sadness, right? Or anger. Just breathe in and create space in your physical body right now in this moment. Take 3 more deep breaths, expanding the body, the belly, the lungs. Leaning in to any resistance in our physical or emotional body, our mental body. Breathing spirit in. And by becoming present to this moment, we can actually begin to change and choose something new. So in this moment, I'm choosing peace with my chores. I'm choosing peace with my mother-in-law. right? And I can hold that space of peace, even if she's frustrated and, you know, yelling at the dogs or the cats. Like, okay, I'm gonna keep holding that instead of me falling into her frustration vibration, right? And how many of y'all can know that when that happens, right? Well, I'm frustrated, but it's not even my own. It's not even my own shit, right? So that's this first path. Once we gain energetic sovereignty with Qigong. It's like, what's mine? What am I feeling? And what am I picking up from my mom, my dad, my partner, my girlfriend, my boyfriend? What am I picking up from the animals, right? From the trees, right? So, you know, when you're talking about, you know, we're born from the stars, and all the native traditions talk about us being, you know, star beings, star seeds. And so for some of us, we've been on this earth many times. So some of you watching this are a master, and you're remembering your mastery in this life, right? And so mastery is a big mountain, right? And so that first awakening, right, 20 years ago was just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's been 20 years since. I'm 39. It's been 21 years since, and I still have a big mountain ahead, but I feel the enlightened energy, and sometimes I don't, right? Sometimes I'm just human, right? So, you know, from the Buddhist perspective, they say heaven and hell is 1 inch apart, right? Heaven and hell 1 inch apart based on your state of consciousness. Based on your state of consciousness at any given moment. Right. So when I'm in hell, I ask, why am I creating what? Why? It's been a week. What in the hell? Oh, I'm with my in-laws. Oh, it's been a week. I haven't done my practice. I ain't been doing my energetic hygiene and I'm losing my mind. Right. So we learn what are the factors, you know, who are the people that we are actually need to kind of cut out of our life. Right. When you and Owen, we were just talking about this before the call. When you go through a transformation, man, all of a sudden stuff gets stripped away. People, relationships, jobs, friendships, marriages, they just right. So in my year long, man, every time about 25% that first semester, somebody gets, you know, relationship, whether it's divorce or separated, job change. It's like every time it's like something gets stripped away. And that's the scary part. You're like, well, who am I without this job? Who am I without this relationship? Right. So there's a natural fear that happens. And during those times, having a practice like Qigong, you know, breath work, meditation, yoga, it's the most important thing you can do when you don't know what's coming next. I don't know what's next. I'm in limbo, God. Show me through meditation, through time in nature. Right. Those two things, time in nature and you know, breathwork, Qigong, will make a big difference in your life.
Spiritual warriorship. I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit with that.
Ooh, I like that.
I love peace. I do love peace, but I'm also a megalomaniac. I am very, very, and this is me being very honest, very vulnerable. I am very power oriented. Qigong for me, meditation for me, is a cultivation of power, of energetic power and physical power. Because what was told to me in meditation by my spiritual guides and my ancestors is look at nature. Nothing that doesn't have power has peace. Only those who have power have peace. And that really stood out to me because I looked at all of nature, humanity included. I looked at who has peace and who is really suffering. You know who's suffering? Is the little baby bird that gets eaten by a wild wolf. Is the little weak being, something that doesn't have the power or strength to defend itself. And in a human experience, there are lots of forces around that would be of evil or dark side energy that can come into your life. And if you're not powerful enough, and power has a multitude of meanings, it's not just physical or energetic or kung fu Shaolin strength or athletic strength. There's also peace is a power, and compassion is a power. But people who don't have personal power gets steamrolled
For sure. For
by
sure. 100%.
ideas, by governments, by media, by all sorts of nonsense.
For sure. Yeah.
So for me, that proverb from Japan about being a warrior in the garden rather than a gardener at war speaks so much to the spiritual warfare of this planet right now. And we've been
Yeah.
battling it. We've been battling the false dark evil medical industry. We've been battling the delusions of
Totally.
media and confusion and all of these things.
Yeah.
So
So I'd like to riff on that. I love what you're bringing up because we are in duality, right? We are in duality. So there is spiritual warfare happening. There is biological warfare happening. And if you don't have energetic hygiene practice, that's what I've been calling for the modern day. You know, it's like the yogi masters, Qigong masters, the hunters, right? We think about where this comes from. It comes from those who are close to nature, right? And so it's, for me, it's like understanding that spiritual warriorship is, there's this really beautiful term that really stuck with me. And it was like every 1,000 years, a Buddha will have to kill a man, right? Because that man has lost his mind. Every 1,000 years, and when you do, right, you are present with their fear and their anguish and you're present with them. And you say, this, see you next life. Pray for your next life because you're not going to harm me. You're not going to harm my family because there's crazy, there's evil, there is evil. Don't get that twisted, right? And we're in a time of, great transformation. So some of these energies, there's a kickback, right? As we get brighter, there's a kickback, but there's going to be a point, and I feel like we've already reached that point. And you can see governments are breaking down. Like there's a lot of stuff breaking down. And if we have a center, we build this new earth from our heart, from our soul, from our true vision, right? And we don't invest our time and energy into a breaking system, into a falling system. So I don't put too much chi in society or money. I'm like, I want to live with the land, man. I want to, and so simplifying our life and remembering that power and peace, are something that it's more of a continuum, a spectrum, right? So I don't search for power through my Qigong practice or search for power against something. I know that by connecting to my breath, that power of God resides in me. And thus anything that is less than God can't be in this space, right? So there's very specific mantras, sigils, like, I do some real high magic because I have to. When you start getting disturbed in your dreams by negative energies, you're like, okay, I got to start doing a nighttime protection practice, and so, or in your day-to-day life, you're like, okay, I deal with stress, I deal with certain things, I have to be on my game. And that's that Qigong, breath work, exercise, nutrition. It's got to be on par, because if not, then we get pulled under the under the veil.
I love that I pulled that out of you, because there's a dynamic that I wanted to talk about next, which is power doesn't come from us. We're this little tiny speck. One of the greatest things you can do for your Qigong practice or meditation practice is put into perspective how big other stars and other black holes and the universe itself is. We're tiny. We're little teeny tiny ants on a little teeny pebble floating through space. So when you understand that, you understand that without the presence of the Shen Qi in the heart consciousness, the heart energy, without compassion, without love, without all of your emotions, anger, sadness, without the trees, without the elements, without the stones, without the mountains and the rivers, we're nothing. Without other people, other animals, other parts of nature that are all symbiotic, we're not powerful. We're tiny. if you go into battle, you could be the greatest warrior in the entire universe, the absolute best. You go trying to fight an army of middle grade warriors alone, you're not gonna win. That's the perfect definition of masculine ego, in my perspective, is believing that alone you could face the whole world. Yeah, with the forces of nature, with friendship, with love, with compassion, with animal spirits, with nature spirits, then you got some power. Then you could move and shake. Everyone that I personally know that's making a really positive, or really profoundly positive, not just like a little splash in the water, I did a good deed here and there. People who are really moving and shaking and creating ecological communities and spiritual communities that are truly carbon negative or beneficial for the environment, they're all in tune with nature. They're all loving nature. They're all spiritual in some way.
I like, can I riff on that?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure. Yeah, so basically the theme is power here, right? You're kind of riffing into the power, which I love. So from an indigenous perspective, all the stuff that our ancestors knew, the indigenous wisdom traditions is earth is the expression of God or great spirit or whatever you want to call it, So the power is found in the earth, with the water, the fire, the air, that's the expression of God through the birds and the animals and that interplay, so that power is all around us. We don't even have to think about how small we are compared to a black hole. Just think how small you are compared to the Grand Canyon, or compared to a bear. I think what you're speaking to, and I love, is like what we need most right now is connection to the nature and the earth. That will heal our soul 100%. We have lost connection to the earth. We think the earth is separate. Nature is separate from us. So thus, the masculine ego, the patriarchy, has abused it, has taken it, it has basically raped the earth over and over again, and now it's being destroyed. And that's that false power of like, oh, I have to get as much as I can, make as much as I can, and there's still a hollowness inside. There, we call it the hungry ghost, right? Many traditions call it this hungry ghost. It's like you're never satisfied because you feel that power is outside of you and you have to get. But then when you become a Jedi, it's like, oh, the power is already here. Power is already here. I just need to learn how to connect to the elements and feel the power of the water through my body, the power of the wind through my body, the power of the sun through my actual body. That's the magic, right? And that's what many traditions, they call it star stepping in some of the Taoist traditions, right? Where you're making certain patterns, but you're tuned in and listening to that voice from inside our heart that is connected to the one voice as well, And so there's a quality there of power that's like, it's here. It's right under our feet. And every time we look up at the sky, we can tune into that frequency. Right? And we don't have to try. So, just breathe. Oh, it's here. Wow, the sky is so big, so spacious. And the earth is so strong. Right? So it's like a restful power. It's like, I don't have to get power by doing Qigong. I don't have to get power by doing breathwork. The power is already there, like we said. It's like, I just have to let it in. So, my beautiful invitation for you is to watch Qigong video, learn a move or two, and then go practice in nature for an hour. Just practice in nature and let your breath and your movement guide you.
Yeah, and I would add on that utilizing also all of the wisdom that your personal teachers, your personal spiritual teacher, your guru might be someone that doesn't look like a old Asian or Indian dude with a long beard, might not fit the fads, but everyone has spiritual teachers that bring them towards that great power that is the oneness. And just utilizing also consciousness, to guide your Qigong experience rather than expecting Qigong to happen to you.
I like that.
Actively grab the lightning bolt is what my
Yes.
Qigong teacher, TJ Frank,
Yeah.
said. Grab hold of the pole, grab hold of the light.
Yes, I like that. I really
And
like
the past
that.
few days, I've had this super profound, blissful experience through Qigong where taking hold of the wheel, taking hold of the lightning bolt, and just saying internally, speaking, I am in total harmony with the all. I am in total harmony with all that is. And it was just like a bliss unlike anything else, unlike
I feel that.
any high that life can give you, natural or artificial. That's the stuff. That's the profound, like, after
Yes.
that I'm like, what else is there? Like, I just want to teach people how to get there, because it's like I've hit this apex, right, of if you tune in with that sensation and really feel the all, really not just think about oneness but really experience it in its full bliss. Now I'm like, okay, let me go back down the mountain and see how I could guide people up to the top, because I have been blessed by life, by my teachers, by my own decision making to be healthy enough, to be spiritually hygienic enough, physically hygienic enough, to get to the top of the mountain. And then where do you go? Do you fly off and say peace out, everybody? And then I've been going back down at the mountain, and I don't climb up the mountain with everybody, but I say, hey, that's the path. Hey, you have this skill, go that way. Oh, I get the feeling that this mountain is the mountain, not this one that I've climbed, but you got a different mountain to climb. And it's got different challenges and different experiences and energies and helpers along the way. And Feng Shui is another good way to harmonize your Qigong practice, because they call it geomancy, or sacred geometry of the Bagua, of the Feng Shui hexagrams, and the circle is like reattunes you to what the Native Americans knew, what the Mongolians knew, what the Africans knew, is the direction you're going in life literally is important. Because for our ancestors, say your ancestor is an Apache warrior from New Mexico, Arizona. If they're not oriented with the directions that they're going in life, you could die in the desert, getting eaten by a mountain lion. Serious danger, not like the sneaky danger that humans cause each other. Like, if you're like the Chinese ancestors or Mongolian ancestors, if you're going in the wrong direction, metaphorically and literally, you could end up in the Gobi Desert with no water, dead.
Or frozen, right? Or you get you're like, there's a I really appreciate you bringing in that practicality of it, and then those directions, as you know, I've got a roll here in about a minute and a half, and I love the direction where this is going. Like those directions, from Native American and from the Chinese shamanism, it's like each direction has a spiritual connection as well, and there's an emotional connection, and it's like the medicine wheel, and maybe we talk about that. We have a whole nother talk all about medicine wheel type stuff and directions and healing that way, because that's a whole realm of awesome that we don't have time to explore today.
Yeah, let's do it. So this is David Beaudry's Qigong episode, and then next episode it'll be about directions in life, and we'll talk about the mystical directions and the literal directions. Don't go towards the mainstream. It's super polluted, full of a bunch of toxic stuff. Go to the pure streams. go to the pure waters. Don't go to the mainstream. The mainstream got nothing for you.
All right, man. Thank you, bro. Have a great day. Appreciate you.
Peace. Thanks for being here, David. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and wishing you and your family all the best on your journey.
Thank you, bro. Okay, much love.